Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by husky, hairy, huggable homos who love film to dish up maybe some movie news. Although this week I don't think we're going to do that. We're going to switch it up a little bit, but we also review films as well, so we are excited for that in general. But with this movie, I don't know. Question mark. We'll see. But before we get into any of that, let me introduce my wonderful co-host, Jim Poliafico. Welcome, Jim.
Thanks. Welcome to the podcast, everyone.
And Will Lindis is here too. Welcome, Will.
Hey, welcome, guys. And yeah, Brad, to your point, we're excited to talk about all movies, good, bad, in between. We're ready to talk.
And look at Jim's shirt. Do that again, Jim. Let me focus the camera on you. Dun 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 dun. Laser cats.
Oh, kitty with laser eyes. That's pretty thematically appropriate.
So as Jim's shirt is alluding, although none of the pets have laser eyes, we are going to be discussing...
spoilers.
Might as well.
We're going to be discussing The Secret Life of Pets on the Movie Bears podcast this week. We're also going to be serving up some Indie Watch for you guys. It's been a while since we've done that. It's the segment of the show where we pick some cool indie films in theaters now, or will be in short order, for you to check out. Films that maybe aren't your summer tentpole blockbuster movies making all the money, but are definitely worth your time. So, a lot to talk about tonight, or today, or this morning, or this weekend, depending on whatever your temporal relative time of listening to this episode is. Are we ready to get to it, guys?
Yeah.
It's time.
All right, awesome. Well, then let's kick things off with some Indie Watch. And just to give you a little bit of a baseline of how this is going to work, we're going to talk about both films. We're going to discuss spoiler-free. So fret not if you're just looking for a recommendation. You don't want to be spoiled. We'll serve that up to you. And then, we'll definitely serve you well, hopefully, and giving you a couple cool things to check out this weekend if you're looking for something that's not a blockbuster film. But Jim, why don't you start us off with our first Indie Watch movie?
Okay. Look, I'm going to talk a little bit about a movie that's just now getting ready to open, or it's just starting to open in some places. We saw this film back at South by Southwest. We talked about this film on back when we did our South by Southwest shows. We also talked about it actually last week. This film made our list as one of the top movies of 2016 so far. And that is a movie called, strange name, but it's a movie called Hunt for the Wilder People. And it's a movie written and directed by Taika Waititi, or YTT, from New Zealand. And I'll give you a little synopsis, and then we'll get into maybe describing it a little bit more. It's a movie about a boy named Ricky, played by newcomer Julian Dennison, and his new foster father, C.M. Neal, and they become the subjects of a manhunt after they get stranded in the New Zealand wilderness. So that's the basic setup for the movie. There's a lot to this movie. This one is really great. It's probably going to be on lists at the end of the year as our favorites. I think all three of us love this film from when we saw it. We still love it. I can't wait to get back and see this one again when it finally opens somewhere here. This one would appeal to such a wide audience. It's an adventure film. It's got drama, it's got action, it's got emotion, and it's an offbeat comedy. Director Taika Waititi has directed films like What We Do in the Shadows, a really kind of a dark comedy about the hidden life. We talk about the secret life of pets on the show, but that movie is about the secret life of vampires. So seek that one out when you can. This guy's a talented writer and director. I love the way he writes. And this movie is a totally different movie than like his previous movie, What We Do in the Shadows. This one's more of you could say, kind of a mainstream movie, and it's going to appeal to a lot of people, and it does so with nothing. I mean, it doesn't have a gimmick, I would say. It's just got solid writing. a perfect balance, I think, of all those elements that I mentioned. You know, the emotion, the comedy, the drama, the adventure. It's got the fresh face of Julian Dennison, who's perfect for the role of Ricky in this movie. So to see a breakout performance like that is almost worth it on its own in a movie like this. He's great. Sam Neill, of course, a veteran actor we've seen in a lot of things. He's solid here too. This movie right now is actually making a lot of waves because it's broken into the top 100 movies of all time on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
Like, it's got well over 100 reviews now, and it's still at 100% solid. Like, that doesn't really happen. You can take any great movie over the last several years, and there's always, you know, one or two kind of reviews in there to you know, negative reviews that, you know, some critic didn't like this aspect or that aspect. But I think the 100% speaks to this movie's, like, you know, wide appeal. I've talked about it long enough. I love this movie. I want to see it again. I think you guys should seek it out. Remember the name. It's a little bit different. Hunt for the Wilder People. You'll laugh, and, you know, it's a great adventure. It's a definitely a feel-good kind of movie. We're not going to spoil anything here, but I want to hear what you guys have to say a little bit.
It's interesting you mentioned that, Jim, about the reviews, because what's inevitably going to happen is there's going to be one dude, asshole critic, and he's going to come along and he's going to mark it down. Not because maybe it's because he doesn't like the movie. That's, you know, how critique works. But just as likely, it's going to be for all of those clicks from being the one contrarian to a movie.
Self-promotion.
We've seen that happen with films before in the past,
right,
but
right.
yeah, this is a great one. Like like you mentioned, we all had a blast with this movie. This is really funny. It's very sweet. It's very heartfelt. The closest thing I can imagine in terms of like the tone of this movie is it's like if you take the heart of like a movie like Pixar's Up and just add a lot more like kind of quirky screwball comedy on top of that. Maybe with the characters being a bit more outcasts. At the heart of this movie really is the relationship between Sam Neill and between Julian Dennison, and if there's no chemistry between those two actors, this film doesn't really work. There is a lot of chemistry between these two actors. Yeah, this is a strong recommend from me. I think that if you're the type of person that likes kind of under-the-radar movies, this would be a good one for you. If you like going to the theater and laughing, I think you'll enjoy this one. I think enough people are familiar with, Taika Waititi's, like, he's one of these directors who, you know, like, we saw him in Eagle vs. Shark. We saw him in What We Do in the Shadows. We saw him here. He's going to be doing a Thor movie next. So this is a good chance for people who maybe haven't seen any of his work to get familiar with it before they inevitably see it some upcoming summer. Brad, what's your thought?
You know, it's so interesting. I've talked before about how comedies just typically like are not my thing. Like I don't know, probably 95% of most comedies I don't even laugh at, especially the like screwball, stupid, slapsticky humor comedies. But it's interesting in this one. It's got some elements of that, but I think what makes me really laugh is I buy into the characters and their relationships so much, so that when like these crazy things are happening to them, it almost feels grounded to me in a way in the characters that other comedies don't. For instance, we saw Central Intelligence recently, the new Kevin Hart, Dwayne Johnson comedy, and while that one was fine, I kind of chuckled a little bit. You know, most of it I was not laughing. And I didn't really feel like the characters in that movie, I don't know, they didn't feel real to me. I didn't feel emotionally invested in them. But with Hunt for the Wilder People, like, I love both of these characters, and I wanted to see them, like, grow and mature together and establish a bond. And as they're going through these crazy, zany adventures, I almost wonder if because I care about them, like, the more the irony of what's happening maybe affects me. I don't know if that's a thing. Maybe if I don't care about the people, maybe they have to be Wilder people for me to have Wilder laughs. I don't know. But this one, I think, does a fantastic job of really being a dark comedy in a way too.
Mhm.
It's not all just stupid, funny laughs for laughs' sake, which I love. I think it's smart. I think it's brilliant, and I think Sam Neill and Julian Dennison do a phenomenal job.
Yeah, I mean, Brad, to touch on what you said, I mean, the emotion here and the comedy all come out of what's really happening to these characters. It's not artificially thrown on. It's how these characters are wired. And Ricky, the central character here, the young kid in this movie, he plays the hero. It's kind of a different take on kind of the hero's journey, if you will. I mean, this is a movie we're gonna be talking about movies when we get to The Secret Life of Pets that are primarily kids movies and like Pixar movies. They're kids movies that also appeal to adults. This is kind of an adult movie that I think you could definitely take kids to go see, like especially like preteens, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think they would love this movie. There's nothing in this movie that's super far out there or super offensive. For kids of that age, I don't believe. But I think that kids could relate to the main character in this movie. And, this is the kind of movie that can get kids really sparked on the idea of movies and independent movies and movies that aren't comic book movies. And that's exciting. And so I hope that happens. I hope, if you have, kids in your family, you will take them to see this movie.
It's a PG-13 film, but I think there's often a lot of like latitude within these ratings, and I would say that this comes in as a very soft PG-13. Like, definitely great to take your 13, 14, 15-year-old to, because I think this is definitely the type of film that a kind of like a young adult and their parent could probably bond over. Also, wanted to do a quick shout out. I don't want to talk about the character because the character himself would be a spoiler, but the actor Rhys Darby has a fantastic little scene-stealing role in this movie, and I just want to give him credit. Like, it's not a major role, but when he is on screen, it's like you take notice.
Definitely, and I don't want to say too much about that character either. Yeah. But a great appearance and a memorable character in the movie. And there aren't a lot of characters in this movie. There are some supporting roles, but it's primarily about 3 or 4 characters, mostly.
Yeah, definitely a small cast, but one that's used to great effect, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So, plus we got some creative use of drone shots in this movie, which I really appreciated.
There you go. I forgot about those.
I'm
trying to remember back to March when we saw the movie and
well sitting in the Vimeo theater, I think, right?
It was in the Vimeo, definitely.
Vimeo, which
I remember because like we didn't have great seats. Our necks were like craned up at angles, like trying to watch this movie. But yeah, so Hunt for the Wilder People. Check it out. It is good stuff. I'll go ahead and kick off our second movie, and I want to say this real quick. Both of these movies are actually films that we discussed on last week's episode as well. Someone just chimed in and said, that's a great movie, Hunt for the Wilder People, but why are we talking about it 2 weeks in a row? And you know what my response to that is? Listener whose name I won't name, I adore you, you know that. But it's a movie, Hunt for the Wilder People and Swiss Army Man, which I'm bringing up now. They're both films that are so good that, you know what, they bear talking about twice. There's nothing wrong with that. And, unfortunately, if you listen to both episodes back to back, I guess it could be a little boring. But you know what? Whatever. It's our fucking show, and we're going to talk about what we want to talk about.
But we get a chance to expand on it, too, because last time we did it as part of, like, counting down our top, and we had, I think,
2 minutes per movie.
2 minutes per movie, and I felt like, I think we all did afterwards, like, we enjoyed talking about it, getting our list out there, but these 2 movies, we felt like we had more to say.
Oh, totally.
That we didn't get a chance to, because the other ones, like Green Room, and some of the other ones we talked about, they've had their own episodes. We've championed them in detail, but these are 2 movies that hit our lists that we only got 2 minutes to devote to, so
right.
Now we get to wax poetic a little bit more this episode.
Yeah, we get a little room to spread out. So, for those who are not familiar, Swiss Army Man is a new film that's out in theaters right now. You can go check it out. Stars Daniel Radcliffe of Harry Potter fame and Paul Dano. You may have seen him in Looper, maybe more recently Love and Mercy, the Brian Wilson Beach Boys movie, which was also fantastic. Basically, Daniel Radcliffe is a dead body. Again, spoiler free, it's in the trailer, washes up on shore, this like island where Paul Dano is about to hang himself, and the appearance of this body like saves Paul Dano from killing himself when he sees it. And this body seems to have powers, like it farts and can propel, across the water like riding a speedboat. It can pull the leg back and chop wood with it. I mean, it's all this cool stuff that apparently this body can do. And is it
more.
just a body? We don't know. Like in the trailer, we see the body talking. Okay, buddy. So it's kind of a really cool mix of these two great actors with sort of a weird, sort of surrealistic, nonsensical but sensical plot in a way that I think is just incredibly, incredibly imaginative. I mentioned last week it's got a phenomenal score, which I have not put down since I bought it. Still listening to it. So I really appreciate this movie because I tell you, I am so blockbuster fatigued right now after fucking Civil War and Independence Day and blah, 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 blah. We had been asking, what was the last good movie we saw? And I didn't really have a great answer for that until walking out of Swiss Army Man. And I was like, oh, hey, like, finally, a good movie that we saw this summer. So I really enjoyed it. You guys did too, I believe, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love Swiss Army Man. It's like I said, it didn't make my list what that we talked about last week, only because I knew it was going to come up probably on at least one of the other lists. But there's room up there in my top 10, believe me, for this movie at the end of the year. And yeah, back to that comment. I mean, why we talk about these movies 2 weeks in a row? Because the marketing you see will not get you normally to necessarily want to see these movies. And most of the time, these are movies you're going to want to talk about after the movie. You may be talking about this movie 2 weeks after you see it. They stick with us in our minds, and so we enjoy the interaction with each other to talk about movies like this. But yeah, I love Swiss Army Man. That's again another one for a potential rewatch. Haven't got to see it again yet. Deserves probably a bigger release and a bigger circulation. I don't know if it'll get that. Just so much unexpected. Like, if you listen to the description of this movie, to somebody to describe this movie to you in a non-spoilery way, there's no way that this movie sounds worth watching. It sounds very dumb on the surface, and if you think about its surface premise, it is kind of dumb, but there's so many great, rich layers to this movie, and that's what I love about it. I love movies that have, different aspects to them. You can come at them from a lot of different views, a lot of different perspectives, and maybe see something different if you just approach it a little bit differently. And yeah, that's just one of the reasons I love it. Plus, the filmmaking's great. Brad, you've talked about I'm sure you'll talk about the soundtrack again. This has an amazing soundtrack that really heightens the movie experience. It's not just laid over on top, but it's an actual integral part of the movie and of the characters, and I love how they did that. It's not just a cool song that plays over a montage that happens. There's actually music happening within the scenes of the movie, and another reason to love it. Will, what did you think?
Yeah, this is when I did my written review for this on Letterboxd, the site that I track all my movies on, this was one of the easiest ones I wrote out. It was simply the sentence, this film is the reason I go to movies. I love being able to go into a film and finding something that I have not seen before, something that hits emotional beats that I've not seen elsewhere, that hits story beats that I've not seen elsewhere, that tackles subject matter I've not seen elsewhere, and that does it in a way that's completely unlike anything that I've ever seen. And that's as many movies as we see per year for this podcast, and ones that we never even get a chance to talk about here, being able to say that is huge. It's huge. Right now, I've got this film and another film, Green Room, are like for me, the two best movies of the year. And they keep fighting in my mind for which one I've liked best, and that's quite telling. The Daniels, the directors here, Dan Kwan and Daniel Scheinert, they've really developed a voice here. They've done something quite unique. I mean, these are guys whose background is music video direction. This is their first feature-length film, and they do it. I mean, I think this is a slam dunk. I think they nailed every single beat. It doesn't work, of course, without Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe turning in. Honestly, like these performances at least are on par with any of their best work that they've done so far. And with an actor like Paul Dano, that is saying quite a bit. Daniel Radcliffe, too, I think he has a very, very limited amount of motions that he's allowed to do in this film. And within that range, he is able to get quite a bit across. Brad mentioned the soundtrack before. The entire thing is scored by this band called Manchester Orchestra, one of my absolute favorite bands of all time. I've got a guitar pick that Andy Hull threw into an audience crowd about 5 years ago. I saw them, so I've still got that, and I love having it. I love it even more now that it it now connects not only this awesome concert I went to, but now it ties into this film that I love so much.
You mentioned that the Daniels have directed some music videos, and that's kind of where they come in. And I had heard that they directed the music video for a song called "Turn Down for What," which is a DJ Snake song, right? So I'd heard the song, but I'd never seen the video. So I went and watched it the other day, and I was like. It was astounding, the stuff that goes on in that video. It's a pretty crazy video, and there are elements that are in that video that are also in the movie, and I won't spoil them, but I was laughing watching that video.
It's a ridiculously memorable video. I mean, we've all heard the Little John "Turn Down for What" song, and the video, just the visuals are just gonzo. And that's the type of thing that you also get to see here on screen. There's a lot of really touching shots here in this film. Things where the colors are muted a specific way, where the light like the light of like a fire reflecting off the characters' faces has a very cinematic, very gripping feel to it. And then it cuts in with a boner or it vomiting or something just completely crass and bodily, and it's all about the filmmakers trying to make some sort of connection between our hang-ups about our bodies and how that's not necessarily something that we're supposed to have. It's something that's been pushed upon us.
Right.
And so what I love so much about this movie is I keep finding new themes. I keep finding new messages. I keep finding new ways of unpacking this particular plot beat or these particular interactions. This is the type of film I think I could see 18 more times and find a little something different every single time.
And I definitely want to talk about it with people who have seen it, because I know we're not going to talk spoilers here, but there's a lot of spoilers I'd like to talk about. That whole ending of this movie is, I think, packed with so many different ways you could view it, and some of them way out there, and some of them really grounded, and some of them just right on the surface in your face. I'd really like to have that discussion with somebody and figure out what it was trying to tell me.
Well, and I think part of the problem, and I've been really quiet because this was like my number one choice last week, and I talked about it a lot, so it's good to hear you guys kind of get a chance to give a lot more of your thoughts. But I think for me, the problem that I have is even this weekend, right, we were at another pool party, and people know we do a movie podcast, so they're like, what movies have you been going to see? And I'm like, oh man, Swiss Army Man, you got to see it. And they're like, oh, isn't that like the dead body farting movie? Like, that looks disgusting. I would never go see that. And it just hurts my heart because the marketing for this movie. To be fair, I don't know how you would market this movie.
No, right.
But I'm just telling people, I'm like, yeah, it sounds kind of gross on the surface, but you know what I mean? It's one of those things where you just, like, you got to get past it. You got to go see it. It's not all that.
And if you're one of the people that has a hang up on it because it's a farting corpse movie, maybe you've heard the allusions to like boners and vomiting and just like all of this like stuff that's extremely like I said, crass. This is a film that is about the reason we have hang-ups about these types of bodily functions, and it looks at something more pure that's behind those things. And it's really, really hard to explain or describe, but the film is able to pull that off and make you kind of go, oh, yeah, these are just things that happen to us. And so that's kind of the beauty of this movie. Like, if you were one of the people who happens to have one of those hang-ups, I wouldn't say, oh, maybe this isn't the movie for you. I would say, hey, maybe this movie is exactly the movie for you. So if you've passed on this one because it's the farting corpse movie, rethink that. It's totally worth watching.
Yeah, and it could take something that's kind of gross and crass on the surface and take all those things and really turn it into something really beautiful. If especially for if you're a lover of movies, this movie will surprise you in how it can mold something that just sounds so out there into something so relatable. And that's the beauty of this movie.
A lot of beauty, a lot of wondrousness, a lot of awesomeness that I think, unfortunately, just a lot of people are not getting to experience because they're not giving themselves permission to go to a so-called farting corpse movie. So you know what? Just go see it. Just go do it.
We give you permission. Right now, we pull down your inhibitions, knock down those walls. The Movie Bears podcast is giving you a pass.
There you go. Hey, I wanted to give a quick shout-out to our buddy Lane from Texas who is listening live right now. Lane, glad to have you listening. Good to hear from you, my friend.
Howdy, Lane.
Yeah. Hi, Lane. Haven't heard from Lane in a while. Good to see you join us.
Will, did you say it like that because you're like both in Texas?
I sure did. There's we slip into y'all here in Texas sometimes.
Texas brotherhood.
Even if I don't typically have the Texan Southern accent, I've lived in this great state my entire life, and I know where some of the affectations come from, and I can slip into them if need be.
Oh, the secret life of Texans.
Yep.
Now that might be a movie.
Rule number 34. Anyway, so yeah, that's our indie watch. I mean, we served up a couple of great films that you guys should totally check out. Unfortunately, they're films that you're probably not going to see a lot of like major TV spots or something for. You know what I mean? So maybe they're not as on your radar as The Secret Life of Pets. But go.
Which is. It's astounds me sometimes, but that's the industry that this is.
I know.
Catch them while they're in theaters. I mean, chances are, if you happen to live in a small town or kind of away from a theater that's playing these, I think both of these films, they're high enough profile within the indie-ish genre that they are going to have an extremely strong presence on video on demand here in just a couple of months. So that's a good backup plan. But we love movies here. Support good movies. Support them in theaters. If this is playing near you, go see it.
Yeah, Swiss Army Man right now is in the Cineplexes, so there's no excuse not to be able to go see that movie. It's not just in art houses; it's actually in the multiplexes. I think Hunt for Wilder People is just starting its wider release, so it may be a little bit harder to find maybe for one more week, and then I think you're going to start seeing it pop up. So yeah, watch Swiss Army Man now, and then go see Hunt for the Wilder People next week.
And if you don't believe us, Lane says that Swiss Army Man is pretty awesome too. So there you have it, external, objective opinion, if you will.
All right.
I trust Lane.
Way to go, Lane.
All right, guys. Well, hey, we're half an hour into the show, and we still have a movie to discuss. What do we think?
Wait, we just discussed two movies.
Yeah, we have another movie to discuss.
We're going for the three-peat. We've got.
This is a movie. Let me guess. This is a movie we haven't talked about before.
This is brand new content from the Movie Riz podcast.
Just for you, commenter.
Tonight's review of The Purge. No.
Oh gosh, yeah. I think I need an election beer to enjoy that movie more. But anyway, sorry. Hey, so we're gonna go ahead and get into our review of The Secret Life of Pets. But before we do that, let me put this little bug in your ear. We're going to discuss the movie spoiler free for probably 10 minutes or so. So if you're like, yeah, I'm on the fence about this movie, should we see it? Should I not see it? If you want to hear our take on it, we'll certainly give you some spoiler free advice. But we'll give you fair warning before we go into Spoiler Town. So we are going to go ahead and shift gears a little bit and get into our next discussion of The Secret Life of Pets. All right, so Will, why don't you kick things off for us? Give us the basic premise of this film and whether you think it's worth people checking out or skipping or waiting for rental or what have you.
All right, absolutely. So this is the latest animated film from Illumination Entertainment. They're the same filmmakers that made the Minions movies and the Minions products and the Minions clothing line and the Minions product endorsement deals and the Minions short that precedes this movie, just in case you forget that this movie was made by the people that made the Minions. They also made a couple other things, but it's primarily Minions and this.
The Lorax.
Oh yeah, they did do the Lorax. They've got another one I think coming up called Sing. But
you think?
The Secret Life of Pets. So this is a film. It's all about dogs and cats and birds and gerbils and snakes and guinea pigs. All of these different animals. They can talk to one another. And over the course of one extremely eventful day, this terrier named Max, who's voiced by Louis C.K., he's got this perfect life. He and his master, they're like this. They're perfectly in sync with one another. But all that gets upended when this new dog, a stray that's been brought in named Duke, played by Eric Stonestreet, butts in on his territory, and the two have this rivalry that begins, and it causes an adventure that takes place over the entire city with all of these different animals involved. This is a very, very, very interesting film to talk about in that there are some things that I extraordinarily liked about it, even though at its core it's not a fantastic film at all. I think that if you are a pet lover, I think you will appreciate some of the jokes that are about like the idiosyncrasies of pets, whether it be like cats being kind of aloof or curious, whether it be just some of the ways that dogs interact with one another, or just how single-minded some of these types of animals can be. I think there's certainly some things that a pet owner will get. In fact, I had quite a few laughs in this movie. I enjoyed the humor aspects of the pet-related stuff. The problem is with this movie is that it's also a buddy comedy, and it's also this sweeping adventure across town. And because you have the buddy comedy separate from the all of these other characters that are in this kind of B-plot together, you don't really get a chance for anyone to really be developed as much as you would really like them to have the stakes that you would need for there to be any type of emotional payoff. So what this ends up being is sort of light popcorn fare. I think this is a perfectly fine movie to take a kid to, very much geared towards kids. I think a kid would enjoy this. I think this is a perfectly fine movie if you want some. If you liked the Minions movies. I know I mentioned it quite a bit. I find that the Minion movie was kind of brainless and didn't have a lot going on there. But if that works for you, I think this will do perfectly. Other than that, I think this one is a hard one for me to do a hard recommend on or anything like that, just because I think we've seen better animated movies this year. I mean, hell, Finding Nemo is probably still in theaters near you, so you should probably just go see that a second time instead if you want a talking animal movie. So not a train wreck. I didn't hate this movie. I didn't like this movie. I enjoyed some of the laughs, but I didn't like the story. I enjoyed some of the voice acting. I hated some of the voice acting. This might have been the funniest that Kevin Hart's ever been, but that's not saying much. I don't know. Very much in the middle on this one. I guess if I'm flipping a coin, maybe it falls under softest recommend possible for very, very limited audiences or people who have kids. So that's my not very decisive opinion. How do you guys feel?
Brainless and not much going on pretty much sums it up, I feel.
Yeah.
Gosh. I think of the three of us sometimes I'm the most forgiving when it comes to some of the animated stuff. I'm pretty in touch with my inner child. We drink juice boxes on the couch watching Saturday morning cartoons. And Will, I know you've got a lot of that going on too. But it's weird for me. Like most of these animated movies, even the Minions movie, which I really didn't like that much, there was at least some stuff that was kind of, I don't know, that I kind of liked, that kind of resonated with me. But man, this whole movie is just, it's like written pretty much for a 4-year-old. And I know it's a kid's movie and that's what it's supposed to be. But I mean, many of these animated films nowadays, because they know their parents are bringing their kids to see these movies, kind of right to that a little bit. They throw maybe some adult emotion stuff in there, or maybe some jokes that are something adults would maybe get that kids wouldn't really, so you kind of create a bi-level of enjoyment. But it felt like this movie was pretty much just squarely aimed at like the lowest denominator kid and like shat all over the screen. I did not have fun in this movie, unfortunately. Every plot beat of this movie was like stepping in a steaming pile of dog shit. I'm sorry to be so negative. I mentioned, I know I'm weird when it comes to comedy, and the slapsticky bullshit comedy in this film just did not do much for me. I appreciated some of the characters, I guess. The Chloe Cat character was kind of fun. In the trailer, like the one funny line that she had for me was when she's like, I know you're my friend, but I just really don't care about you or your problems. I was like, yeah, that's pretty much Cats. Like, that's funny. But then, like, she's really just not, I don't know. That's kind of it for her character for me. So I feel like, Will, I'm kind of way on the other side of where you are, and Jim, I'm not sure where you're going to fall between us, but this is definitely a big pass for me. You could see it on rental if you want, but I definitely wouldn't spend the money to go see this in theaters. I feel like this is like every animated movie ever, like pushed into one. I feel like it's trying to do too many things, and I think it suffers for it. I also feel like this movie, we can talk a little bit in spoilers. It kind of does some interesting things in regards to like pet owners and their relationships with pets, but it only just for the briefest of fucking moments touches on that. And for me, I was like, oh my god, if the whole movie had been that, how amazing would this be? But no, we're gonna go for lowest common denominator, like kid stuff that you can. And I think it's great for kids. They're going to enjoy it. I think they're going to eat it up. But I don't know. It's not a recommend for me. Jim, how about you?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I wish I could be the the one on the positive side of the spectrum for this movie, but that's not going to happen with me. It just, as fine as I think this movie is fine as a fun popcorn movie for families that want to go see a movie, have a few yucks, see some pets that they might have, that remind them of their pets. You're just not going to get much more than that. I mean, this is you're going to see bright colors, cute animals, loud action scenes of animals escaping or chasing each other. And Will, we talked about. This movie is called The Secret Life of Pets, and it touched on that a few times, but it really didn't. There's so much more I think maybe could have been done with that would have made a more meaningful movie. Dig into the characters. We get a little bit of that at the beginning of the movie, and we see some of that in the trailer with Max and his owner. There's a little bit sprinkled in at the end, and we'll talk about that in spoilers. and then there's maybe one scene kind of 2/3 of the way through that kind of hits on a little bit of that, but I wish it was more of that. Instead, the movie really got, Will, you talked about the B plot. It was really the plot of the movie. There was this whole, the movie was so plot driven. It was, about this giant plot of getting from A to B to C, and that was, and they made funny things happen along the way, and a lot of the funny things weren't even connected to the things they were doing. Oh, we got to go from here to here, and it's a big chase. Oh, let's knock over this woman with groceries, in her hand, and I'm like, that's a gag. You know what I mean? Let's just make the audience laugh. Let's not make them really care about what's going on. I don't know. It seemed to go for the easy laughs in this movie, and look. A lot of people are going to love this movie. I posted on Facebook that we were going to see this movie, and several friends said, "Oh yeah, I saw this movie. It's so good. It's great." And I think that's what this movie is supposed to do. It's supposed to say, "Hey, for people who like, a light comedy, popcorn, this is a great movie, but you're just not going to get anything deeper than that." So I really can't recommend this movie either. It might be a rent. If you do have kids, young kids especially, you want to entertain them for a few hours at the movies, I think this is fine. There's nothing wrong with this movie. It's not a terrible movie. It just didn't engage me in a way, that made it interesting for me. So otherwise, I mean, the voice acting was all right. I mean, Louis C.K. the voice acting was fine. I don't have any complaints about the voice acting. I was trying to figure out whose Duke's voice was the whole movie, and I couldn't. At first, I thought it was like Seth Rogen, and then I'm like, wait a minute, that's not Seth Rogen, and I couldn't figure it out till the end, and we saw it was
Eric Stone Street.
Eric Stone Street, which is great. Don't get to see him pop up much in these movies, but yeah, and I don't know. And so here's the thing. People are going to try to compare this movie to other animated movies like the Pixar movies. Pixar does its thing, and it does its thing very well. I'm not saying Illuminations has to be like the Pixar movies, but I think there's room for Pixar for Illuminations to step up their game a little bit. And based from what I've seen in some of their movies, Despicable Me, the first movie, I thought was pretty good. We started to care about the characters a little bit, and that was great. Mm-hmm. And then they got away from that with the Minions, and it's like, oh, let's just see how many funny, cute fucking Minion things that we could put in this movie to make the people laugh, and that's all we care about. So then here's the thing. This movie is making a ton of fucking bank. This movie has opened bigger than any other animated movie, I think, in history. I'm not sure, but it's like over $100 million in one weekend, domestically. That's crazy numbers. And hey, so this movie has its audience. That's great. That's what they want to do apparently with their movie making. That's fine too. I don't know. I'm just looking. Maybe it's not for me, and then I'm just looking for something a little more than that.
Well, I think there's something to be said for. I think that when we talk about movies, we do talk about them just realistically. We talk about them from the perspective of people that see a minimum of one film in the theater per week, sometimes more, and including multiple films. All throughout the week on Netflix and VOD and tracking this thing down. So I think that a film like this is very light fare. This is the type of film where someone who doesn't go and see a lot of movies would go in to see this one, see some interesting things happening, and have a fine enough time. I think we're sometimes a little hard on certain types of comedy, and I'm extremely guilty of this too. Good slapstick, good, like Jim, like you mentioned, gags, good humor along those types of things can be, not only can it work really well in a film, it can be revolutionary. I mean, think about stuff that thinking back to like Charlie Chaplin, thinking back to like even the Stooges and stuff like that. You could do a lot with slapstick. That said, this film doesn't do enough with it to really, really, really make me like excuse it. I feel like the where this film does its humor effectively is when it backs away from that and it plays off of the expectations. I think, like both of you mentioned, between pet owners and pets. This film, I know it's supposed to be the secret life of pets, so we have to get the pet owners out of the story kind of quickly. But unfortunately, as soon as it does so, I think it loses its impact. First 5 minutes of this movie or so, I thought was
pretty good.
Was aces. Like if the entire movie was the first 5 minutes of this movie, I think we would be here raving. I think if the entire movie was like the last 5 minutes of this movie, we'd be in here raving right now. But there is just too much chase scene and not done effectively. If we cared about these characters, you know, you think about, you know, I mentioned Chaplin earlier. You know, you think about like all the slapstick that's found in a movie like City Lights, and that movie, not only does it have like a lot of slapstick and gags and things along those lines, but it's also one of the movies that every single time will make me fucking cry at the end because of the amount of character development that happens in it. And
Right.
I wanted that a little bit more here. And it's not the actor's fault. I think Louis C.K. and Eric Stonestreet did a phenomenal job even. I totally bought into their characters. I couldn't tell who either of them was until the closing credits. In fact, I think that was true for most of the cast. Like, I looked at the credits afterwards. Like, Kevin Hart was very obviously Kevin Hart.
Sure, yeah.
But like Jenny Slate's in this, Ellie Kemper. Albert Brooks was very obviously Albert Brooks.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, this one didn't have very much in the way of like when we talked about Jungle Book and we talked about like Bill Murray and Christopher Walken, just kind of like their presence sort of overshadowing the rest of the film. I don't think there was any voice actor in this that kind of stole the light, and I think that's what you need for an ensemble. So, I mean, that part at least was right.
Yeah, I thought some of the voices just could have been anybody. You know what I mean? They could have been anybody, like the cats and, you know, the guinea pig and whatnot. They could have been anybody. I didn't care. I didn't care if they were name actors. Yeah. And it's just the personality. Will, I think we're touching on two ends of the spectrum with regard to voice acting. With the Jungle Book, how maybe some of the voices were too iconic for the characters that they were representing, and they kind of overshadowed the cartoon, the movie character. And in this movie, I just didn't. It didn't really make any. Would you say
some of them undershadowed like a little bit, like they blended too much into the character, or maybe their voice acting was fine enough.
Too generic.
Like, it didn't necessarily fit the animation. I think that can be a thing that happens sometimes. Like, good animation sometimes, like you can almost like look at the character and kind of see little flashes of the voice actor in it. It doesn't necessarily have to look exactly like them, but maybe you're right. Maybe these characters were a little bit these actors were a little bit too invisible behind their characters.
Could be. Well, guys, I think now is a great time to very briefly get into some spoilers. I feel like we're dancing around a couple things. So we're going to go ahead and shift gears. If you have not seen The Secret Life of Pets yet and you do not want to be spoiled, now is your chance to hit the pause button. Come back after you've seen the movie. If you don't care about spoilers, then by all means, continue listening. Fulfill your heart's desire of hearing us blatantly spoil the crap out of this film, if that's what you're into. But here we go. Spoilers are fair game, starting now. So I want to talk about this this notion of like the relationship between owner and pet that was really interesting at the beginning, really interesting at the end, and then a little bit sort of in
the Duke scene, a little bit with the Duke.
Right. So Duke and his former owner. The stuff at the beginning, you know what? That's fine. Whatever. Most of it's in the trailer. Cool. This whole thing with Duke and his owner dead, and that could have been a movie like onto itself.
How do you fumble that? That's what I want to know.
By rushing, because you have to focus on showing Gidget doing karate moves and a fight sequence with a tattooed pig. You've got so many other things that you've got to focus on that you rush through what really should have been a more
Don't forget rabbit poop.
Oh, the rabbit. And then I won't even take that away because like you put it, that's a cutesy little gag. That's a fine joke, but it takes seconds.
Right.
But what doesn't take seconds are the entire like overly long sequences where you've got them fighting like the gangster cats, or where you've got multiple scenes of like the animals mourning because of this one particular thing that happens to one particular animal. When really I think that we could have spent a little less time with everyone else and a little bit more time with Max and Duke. I wanted to hear them maybe they had one conversation that kind of started about things, but I wanted to see more conversations between them, even if they were in different settings or different ways of doing it, where they just kind of related to one another, or kind of like compared like what their lives were like before this whole adventure, and what some of their common ground is. We didn't get that.
And if you think about it, again, not that every movie has to be Inside Out, but one of the things that movie did well was sort of the journey of joy and sadness together, right? Through the world and blah 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 blah. And so I think you could have done something similar to that here, where they end up going to Brooklyn, like first thing. Maybe the pet truck takes them to Brooklyn or something, and they get off the truck and they're lost in Brooklyn, and then we slowly figure out that Duke is finding his way home, and Max wants to help Duke because he doesn't want Duke in the house anymore. That's how it starts off. But maybe by the end of it, he almost doesn't want Duke to find his owner because he loves Duke now. And it ends up going that way anyway. Like, there's so much interesting you could have done there.
Or at least given you hints about Duke's past up to that point. Instead of just, they're lost in Brooklyn? I recognize that house. Let's go to that house.
It came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it did. It did. And it just, I don't know. And again, maybe they weren't going for that. Maybe there are people who just don't like that stuff. Maybe it's too much like other movies and they wanted to break a mold. I don't know.
You can do a lot with a little. Like, so there's this. I thought it was funny. Like this, like getting high on sausages scene.
Right. I like that.
That was cool.
Wiener Kingdom.
Yeah. So the problem is it was there as a bridge. Like, all of a sudden they're in Brooklyn. All of a sudden they smell sausages. This funny sequence, and then hey, I remember that house. Imagine if kind of the same thing had happened, but maybe a couple of times earlier in the movies we had seen Duke like maybe stop and like kind of sniff at some sausages and been like, "Come on, come on, Duke, we've got to get back." No, I like these sausages. Like, if we had maybe had him maybe like them triggering this memory earlier on, if it was.
I love sausages.
You can do a lot with a little. Like, and we all love sausages. Duke loves sausages.
Gay men love sausages.
Gay men love sausages. There's your headline. No one's ever made that reference before. No.
And I kind of perked up when I saw I'm like, where is this movie going? Like with the Wiener Kingdom, and I'm like, wait a minute, isn't there a movie coming out about this, like sausage party? And I'm like, is this like an ad for the sausage party movie? Are they like
This is the movie that you take your kids to if they want to see Sausage Party, and they insist on seeing Sausage Party, and they're throwing fits about seeing Sausage Party, but you obviously know that you're not going to take your kids to go see that. Take them to this and say, this was the Sausage Party movie. And
right.
Hope they buy it.
Yeah,
I did enjoy that part.
Yeah, that scene was fun, and I liked it too. But I feel like this movie is just clobbered together of so many different things that it doesn't give any one thing room to really breathe. And then at the end of the film, I actually did cry a little bit at the end of the movie for like 5 seconds before the credits rolled, when the big like tattooed like buff
montage.
And like his bird like flies out of the cage or whatever, and he puts some bird seed on his head and lets the bird like eat it off his head. And like we start to see like the different owners with their pets and how much they love them, and the little things they do for their pets. Like, it made me think about our pets and the things that we do. Like our cat Nerisse, she's the 12-year-old like old lady cat in the house. She likes to get in the bathtub and drink from the faucet. So every morning when we take showers, we turn the faucet on, just a little trickle for her. You know, I like that sort of commentary on the little things we do. Jim's got a pet.
Right. Well, pets are making appearances. Feel free to round them up. This is the only one who came in the room. Usually they're bugging me the whole show, and this time when we're talking about pet movies, they're gone, and she doesn't want to stick around either. Anyway, all right, Poe, bye.
She answered the call.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
Will's working on one. Will's working on one.
I got it. He was taking a nap.
It's Huck. It's a huckster.
You guys have met Huck. Yeah, this is my little ball of energy, my Chihuahua. He is 3 years old. He was taking a nap during the podcast. Now he's licking my face. He was taking a nap, so it took him a little too long to come when I started calling. But yeah,
Huck's very rambunctious and playful.
Oh yes, he keeps me on my toes.
He's waking up. But yeah, I mean,
I guess if we're showing off pets, the only thing I can show off, because there are no cats in my room, I'll show my growly that I caught over the weekends. My Pokemon, my flame growly, whatever, which you can't really see on screen because this web camera doesn't focus very well. But anyway, blah blah blah. So anyway, any final thoughts on Secret Life of Pets? Or are we ready for some other?
What does this movie have against snakes? Nobody died in this movie except a snake.
Well, I was okay with that, actually.
Yeah, that was, I will say that was slightly ballsy for the movie. This is the type of movie that always, for me, pulls its punches. Yeah. Like, you know, at the end, like, the snake would be crawling with, like, a bandage and, like, an ice pack on its head. But they straight up murder a snake.
What about the poor kid who has a snake for a pet? That's all he has. He goes to the movie hoping to see a snake in this band of animals, and they make him, like, a horrible character, and they kill him off in, like, 2 minutes. That's awful.
Well, he shouldn't have fleshed away that snake. You know, it's interesting, like, of the three of us, you guys really liked The Good Dinosaur. I came down much lower on it, but I will say that there is a similarity in terms of some core story beats here. A couple of characters who have to kind of form this bond on this, like, journey. And I think that The Good Dinosaur did it so much better than what we've got here. Like, I mentioned before I wanted to see more scenes of the characters relating to one another, and I think about the scenes of the characters in The Good Dinosaur, just the way they communicate with each other, even in nonverbal ways, and it's like this film, again, Illumination Entertainment isn't Pixar, even though I feel like they're trying to be by including, like, references to their next movies in their movies and stuff like that. They're stealing that.
But Pixar doesn't do it quite that overtly.
Pixar, every Pixar movie has references to the ones before and the ones after. But
you gotta really.
But that's I'm not saying that's a bad thing. What I'm saying is it's bad that Illumination. I think it's fair for us to compare Illumination to Pixar because Illumination is trying to tear all of the pages out of the Pixar book and is doing so much poorly.
Well, it's so crazy because I kid you not, I counted 6 instances of seeing the Sing poster in the movie. Like, it's on the back of the bus, it's on the walls, you know, of a building when Duke and Max are walking by, you know, somehow even on the fucking roof when, you know, the dog and the hawk are up there with the cat, like there's a poster behind them. So it's just so blatant. It's like, you know, I don't know. I'm going to get myself into trouble if I say any more than that. But it's just, it's self-promotion to the point of, you know, it's crazy self-promotion, and you're like, I'm calling your bullshit, it's dumb, stop it.
This is, I mean, seriously, someone photocopied a Pixar movie, photocopied that photocopy, and put it on screen. Like, you can see a lot of the things that made Pixar successful as a company aped and done less effectively here. And when they do form their own, when they do kind of when they do have things that work, because it's not that this film doesn't work. There's portions of this film that work incredibly well, but the filmmakers don't recognize it. the filmmakers throw everything they can at this movie, just hoping to get some sort of reaction from the widest base possible, that I don't think that they're making as effective a film as they could have with just a few small revisions.
Yeah, I mean, the one film that I probably would try to, contrast this to, not necessarily compare, would be like Zootopia this year, right? It's just another film about anthropomorphized animals, but it's a much more compelling story, much better character development, and consequently, characters that I cared about. And this one, just like you said, Will, just wanted to keep throwing gags at the screen, and I think the story. I'm a story guy, so if a story suffers, I'm going to suffer in the movie.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. The one thing I will say is that as much as they pimped their next movie called Sing, which is again about anthropomorphized animals, this time in some kind of a singing competition, that's a movie that I think I am more excited about after seeing the trailer than this movie. I think it might be good.
I mean, part of me thinks that like the story to it will be interesting, like or maybe will has the potential to go some directions that we haven't quite seen in any of these yet. But also part of me is thinking like the last time I really like thought that an Illumination entertainment movie was good. Not there's been a couple that I've lightly enjoyed along the way, but the last time one was good was the first Despicable Me movie. And I feel like the Minions got super successful from that movie, and they took the wrong lesson away from it. They didn't realize why that film was successful. They thought it was the Minions, and they've built an entire company around that and similar. So I'm afraid that the fact that Secret Life of Pets is making all of this money, that Minions makes all of this money, there's really no
incentive
for them to change direction and to focus more on some of the things that we want them to focus on.
And oh my God, we didn't even talk about it, but the short at the beginning of this movie. Jiminy fucking Christ!
Halfway through it, I'm like, we are in trouble.
Yeah.
Like halfway through the 6-minute short at the beginning of this movie, I'm like, oh my God, we are in trouble.
This was not Piper. Before Finding Dory, this was the most masturbatory short I've ever seen. This was them saying, hey guys, remember Minions? We're the guys that made Minions. The following movie is made by the Minions people. Laugh at the Minions.
So enjoy our Minions and laugh.
Right? I'm so over the Minions. I mean, I was over them in Despicable Me too. I'm to the point where, like, I actively loathe the Minions now. I hate that they're showing up in every damn thing. Maybe that makes me a grump. Well, no, Brad's beating his minion up, so yeah, maybe I'm a grumpy man, but
stop.
Sorry.
Maybe I'm a grumpy old man or something, but it's just.
Yeah, I mean, Will, there's so many people who love that stuff. I mean, like when we would go to the movies and see the trailer for Secret Life of Pets, which is probably 3/4 of the movies we've seen in the last year. We've seen a trailer for Secret Life of Pets. And at the end of that, they have to show their Illuminations thing with a minion going, Illuminations! Illuminations! And then I like wanted to jump at the screen, but yet everybody, a lot of people around me are digging it. They're giggling and laughing and loving it, and great on them. I'm just over it. All right, rant over.
I went from hating the Minions to absolutely adoring and loving the Minions to fucking hating the Minions. So, you tuned in to the Movie Bros podcast this week. You didn't think maybe you'd see Brad punch a Minion, but
Minion hatefulist.
No, we are forming a Minion hate group. The three of us are all anti-Minion, and yeah.
And we can't wait for Minions too.
Oh God! Don't even. All right, let's go ahead and just do some quick plugs here as we look to wrap up. So I finally got around to seeing Terminator Genesis, and Jim, I know you haven't seen it yet. Will, I don't know if you have or if you had any interest, but no. I really loved the original Terminator and Terminator 2. just been a fan of those movies for a long time. But the Terminator movies after 2 pretty much just sucked ass for me. Just they were terrible. So I was like, God, I really don't want to see this movie. But like Game of Thrones ended, and I was missing the Khaleesi, and I was like, I need more Emilia Clarke. How am I going to get it? And I'm like, oh, she was in Terminator Genesis. I guess I'll finally check that movie out.
Besides rewatching Game of Thrones?
Well, I am rewatching Game of Thrones, let's be real. But anyway, so I decided to check the movie out because it's on Hulu, it's free, I didn't really have to work for it. It just populated in front of me, and I was like, I'll check it out. I was actually really surprised. I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. It kind of pulls like a I don't know, other franchises that pretend other movies in the franchise don't exist and then do a direct sequel. And so it is sort of like a direct sequel almost to Terminator 2 Judgment Day. And it kind of, I mean, it has elements of the movies that came later to it, but I think it takes what worked really well in the first 2 films, amps it up, and does it really well here. So anyway, if you liked the first 2 Terminator films and you thought the other one sucked, and you're looking kind of for a return to form and some Emilia Clarke goodness, check it out. I think it's a lot of fun. Jim, what about you?
All right, so our local Movie Bear group has been requested to set up a screening for a movie that's coming out at our local indie/art house movie house called the Loft Cinema. The movie is called Absolutely Fabulous, the movie, and a lot of our friends have talked about the series Absolutely Fabulous. I'm not a watcher. I don't think Brad watches. Will, I'm not sure if you watch it, but it's a very popular British TV series called Absolutely Fabulous about, and forgive me if I screw up the names here, but Adina and Patsy are the 2 main characters, and they're coming out with a movie, and it's going to be bigger, brighter, and better, and it opens here on a week from this coming Friday, so look for us to be setting up a Bow Top Movie Bears, that's Bears of the Old Pueblo Movie Bears, screening for this probably sometime before the end of July, so yeah, I don't know what to expect. I'm going to go along and go see this based on just word of mouth with friends who say this is a hilarious series. And again, it's called Absolutely Fabulous, the movie.
All right, Will, close us out.
All right, I want to talk about a documentary that absolutely knocked me on my ass. This movie was called Tickled. Yeah, and this is an R-rated movie. There's this dude, he's this journalist in New Zealand, and he does these like these human interest articles. Like, this guy has a bunch of tattoos. This guy does this weird trapeze thing. He has this little that's the type of journalism he does. And so he stumbles upon this YouTube video of this weird it's called competitive endurance tickling, and he's like, all right, this is going to be my next story. So when he goes and tries to contact the Facebook page for the company that posted the YouTube video, he starts getting these threats. Stop now, turn back now, you're getting too close, we're going to sue you, you're never going to be able to work again, and which is weird because of where it comes from. So he investigates further and further and further. This is a weird, dark, twisted documentary that starts off as this weird kind of exploration of this kind of goofy fetish, and even in the trailers and the marketing for it, so this isn't spoiling anything that's not in the marketing, it almost becomes like a weird thriller or like a weird case of power and intrigue and all of these different things. This is a documentary that comes at you from all of these crazy directions. My mouth was agape the entire time as more and more mysteries were revealed in what's, again, kind of such a weird, goofy premise. I strongly recommend Tickled. It may not be for everybody, but it's certainly for the type of person that loves the bizarre, the warped, the unique, the twisted. This is a documentary, I think, that is right up probably more people's alley than they might even expect. Even people that aren't documentary fans. There's a lot of laughs in this too, like really weird, funny, twisted belly laughs. I strongly recommend this. I really, really think you should go track this one down. It's in theaters right now, so look for it near you.
Well, it just opened at the Loft, and this is one I've had my eye on. I've heard some crazy things about this movie. First of all, just those 3 words alone, competitive, endurance, tickling, like those are words that I don't often, see together. And granted, I mean, that's of all the friends I have, some of them may be into some things that are out there. I've never come across a friend who's told me about, hey, you ought to check this thing out that I'm into called competitive endurance tickling. So right there, I'm already kind of hooked on this premise. And then when I heard about some of the screenings, I've heard about people showing up at some of these screenings and actually threatening the filmmakers during the Q&A, and had to be removed from the theater. Now, so here's my thing. So now that's got my interest up. Either this is really fucking out there, or this is a big, long scam or something. I don't know.
Well, it's 100% worth watching. I won't talk at all about like anything else on it, but I think this is one you should absolutely check out and find out for yourself, Jim.
Okay, cool.
I
am definitely interested.
Awesome. All right, good stuff. Well, I think that wraps us for this week. Thanks so much for those of you who are hanging out with us live. Always glad to have you guys with us. And hey, if you're enjoying the show through iTunes or Stitcher Radio on our website, we're glad to have you guys too. Hard to believe this was our 191st episode.
Oh, coming up on 200. Crazy.
Coming up fast, right?
Yeah, my God.
That's crazy. So that's kind of cool. That's kind of awesome. So it's been a while since we've said thank you to you guys, but I'll tell you what, we love doing this because we love talking about movies with each other. But I mean, we could do that over the phone. You know what I mean? We love to do this podcast in part because we get to hear from really cool folks like you. Lane, thanks so much for writing into the show tonight. Great to hear from you. And thank you so much, guys. I mean, we're going on year 3 or 4 at this point. I forget.
Didn't we start December of 2012? Is that right?
December of 2012. Yeah. Right.
So it would be 4 years then.
It would be 4. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, we've done this every week for almost 4 years at this point, which is kind of amazing. I love it.
Great.
So, listeners, thank you so much for supporting the show and enjoying what we do. I'm glad that you do. And anyway, blah blah blah. Brad, shut the fuck up. Let us hit stop and move on to another. But,
do you have a stop button tonight? I don't know.
Oh God, don't even get me started. Google Plus has been a real fucking bear this episode.
Oh, has it? That's appropriate.
Welcome to the Bear Podcast.
All right, everyone. Take care. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.